Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this. You're trying to make sense of a completely foreign civilization. Today, we're tracing one of the most remarkable intellectual journeys in history, a man who managed to bridge two vastly different worlds way back in the 11th century.
I mean, literally, imagine being taken hostage. Your home has just been conquered, and you were thrust into an unfamiliar land, dragged along with an invading army. How would you even begin to wrap your head around the mysteries of the society you've been forcibly thrown into? Most people would just retreat inward. But our subject today, he did the exact opposite.
So meet our protagonist, Al Biruni. Born in 973 CE in modern-day Uzbekistan, this guy was brilliant, a total master of languages who received the absolute best education available in Syriac, Arabic, Persian, and Hebrew. But then, in 1017 CE, his home is invaded by Sultan Mahmud, and he's hauled off to the bustling court of Ghazni. He wasn't some tourist on a sightseeing trip, he was a captive scholar. Yet, crazily enough, it was here, as a hostage, that his incredible fascination with India really began.
Once the Punjab fell to the Ghaznavid Empire, Al Biruni actually started traveling extensively through northern India. Now, travel diaries were already a huge deal in the Arabic world at the time, covering lands from the Sahara all the way to the River Volga. But Al Biruni wasn't interested in just writing your standard travelogue. No, he was after a deep, structural decoding of this entire society.
So instead of wallowing in captivity, he sits down and writes the monumental Kitab Hind. It's an Arabic text basically aimed at explaining this bizarre, alien world to folks back home. He wanted to provide a go-to manual, a repertory of information for anyone who wanted to associate with or even discuss religion with the Hindu population. It was this massively ambitious attempt to translate a whole civilization into a framework that Arabic and Persian speakers could actually comprehend.
And the sheer scale of his work? It is staggering. The Kitab Hind is divided into exactly 80 chapters. 80! This highly predictable, geometric structure wasn't just an accident. Scholars actually believe it owed a great deal to his strict background in mathematics and astronomy.
He really left no stone unturned in his quest to document this vibrant society. He categorized everything from high philosophy to everyday metrology, which, by the way, is the science of measurement. He even broke down alchemy, iconography, and social customs, creating a truly encyclopedic snapshot of 11th century India.
But what's truly mind-blowing is his method. It's almost mathematical. In every single chapter, he systematically poses a question, outlines the Hindu tradition using Sanskrit texts, and then compares it straight to Greek or Islamic parallels. He didn't just label things as strange, he deeply analyzed them. He even translated Patanjali's grammar into Arabic, and get this, for his Brahmana friends, he translated the Greek mathematician Euclid into Sanskrit. Now that is true cross-cultural intellectual exchange.
Obviously, though, this wasn't easy. He pinpointed three massive barriers to truly understanding this alien world. First up was the immense language gap. Second was the vast difference in religious beliefs and practices. And third was what he called the local insularity. Basically, the local population was naturally pretty hesitant to share their knowledge with outsiders, which makes total sense.
That language barrier in particular deeply frustrated him. Compared to his native Arabic and Persian, Sanskrit was just so vast and complex. He noted that the language used one single word for a variety of subjects, which required all these various qualifying epithets just to be understood. He actually issued a pretty stark warning to his readers back home, basically saying, hey, if you want to conquer this difficulty, do not expect it to be easy.
So, how do you overcome a barrier like that? Well, he did something highly exceptional for foreign travelers of his era. Most guys just relied heavily on interpreters, which meant their understanding was always filtered. Not Al Biruni. He spent years in the company of Brahmana priests and learned Sanskrit himself so he could read texts like the Vedas, the Puranas, the Manusmriti, and the Bhagavad Gita directly. He went straight to the source material.
Now, when he tackled the caste system, he tried to rationalize it for his readers by comparing it to ancient Persian social classes, which, interestingly, also had 4 tiers, ranging from knights and princes down to peasants and artisans. He was basically trying to show his audience that rigid social divisions weren't entirely unique to India, bridging the gap and finding common ground before diving deeper into his specific critiques.
Based on his reading, he accurately outlined the 4 Varnas exactly as they were described in the Brahmanical texts he studied. He documented how the texts claimed Brahmas were created from the head of Brahman, Kshatriyas from the shoulders and hands, Vaishyas from the thigh, and Shudras from the feet. He presented this framework completely faithfully to his readers to explain exactly how Indian society organized itself.
But here's the catch. While he meticulously documented the structure, he vehemently rejected the concept of ritual pollution. The whole idea that certain individuals were permanently impure or born totally outside the system of purity was something he found entirely irrational. For him, it was completely impossible to accept.
To push back on it, he used this absolutely beautiful nature-based argument. He pointed out that permanent impurity completely defies the laws of nature, because everything that falls into a state of impurity naturally strives to regain its original condition of purity, like the sun cleansing the air, or the sea's salt preventing the water from corrupting. He argued that if this weren't true, life on Earth would literally be impossible.
Ultimately, he found the exclusivism of the caste system so alien because it fundamentally clashed with his Islamic universalist worldview. In his tradition, all men were considered equal, differing only in their observance of piety. Looking at the sources objectively, it's really fascinating to see how his own cultural and religious lens shaped his criticism. He could understand a society being divided by class, but the spiritual exclusivism and permanent social barriers were just incomprehensible to his specific worldview.
But for all his undeniable brilliance, Al-Biruni had a massive blind spot. He relied almost exclusively on elite, upper-caste normative texts. He described the caste system exactly as the Brahmanas prescribed it in their own rulebooks. He captured the theory perfectly, sure, but as we know, theory isn't practice.
Because he only spoke to the elite scholars and read their specific texts, he completely missed the lived reality of the lower classes. The texts portrayed a rigidly segregated world. However, in real life, categories defined as antyaja, literally those born outside the system, were actually deeply included in the economic networks of the time. Yes, they faced severe social oppression, but they lived in the same towns and villages, providing essential labor to peasants and landlords alike. That daily economic integration was a reality totally absent from the high texts Al-Biruni studied.
Which brings us to the ultimate paradox of Al-Biruni. He crossed immense boundaries of language and culture to create an absolute masterpiece, yet he still carried his own biases, relying on the voices of a select few to explain the many. And that leaves us with a pretty critical question about history itself to end on. If you only read the texts of the elite, can you ever truly understand the whole world?